You already know what it is. It's Update Monday. What's going on with ya, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day is going phenomenal. And if it isn't, well, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Speaking of such, it is Update Monday, guys. It's actually been 9 months and 3 weeks of kicking rheumatoid arthritis' ass. I gotta say, it's been really interesting because I actually have gotten sick, and because, as you should know, I have a compromised immune system, it's a lot easier for me to be sick. Part of me thought that this is gonna be my Jordan flu game. I was gonna go ultra hard when it comes to making content. That didn't happen. But one thing I definitely want to point out is that when you are in a position to take a back seat and become a better person, then yeah, even if it is for stuff just being sick, you should 100% do it. But moving forward, YCS Charlotte was the very first YCS in over 2 years, and I'm very excited to be going over some of the topping list and a complete meta-analysis of it. Let's go ahead and start off with the top 32, as there were over 1,000 players at YCS Charlotte, and the top 32 consists of 10 prank kids with 1 not playing Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. This is going to be a huge theme. You're going to see a lot of Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer and the Adventure Token Engine. There are 4 Fluunderies players, 5 Outlich players, 2 players playing completely pure Outlich, 1 Despia player before the structure deck, so that is pretty amazing. 1 Sky Striker player, which I think there should be more Sky Striker players. You should already know that that deck is insane, but I'll take just 1 Invoked player, 3 Adventure Synchro players. This is the based strategy that a lot of players have been talking about. Basically what it is, it's a synchro strategy that uses the Adventure Token Engine and Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. There's also 5 Tingy Swordsoul players. That is a huge boost over what's been happening over the format, and of course we'll be able to break down why there are so many Tingy Swordsoul players and why this deck is being revitalized in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. 1 Shaddoll player, that's right, pretty much a pure Shaddoll Dogmatica player, and 1 Dragon Link player. It's actually really awesome to see so many amazing decks inside of top 32 out of 1,000 players, but it's clear cut that Prank Kids is the forerunner of the format, as it has been able to take over the game. Not only can this strategy use the Adventure Token Engine extremely well and Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, its very own engine is a 1-card starter into a Prank Kids Battle Butler, where if you get maximum efficiency of the card, it allows you to destroy your opponent's board twice. On top of that, Prank Kids you being limited to 1 does not mean anything. Prank Kids Pranks actually can shuffle the card back into the deck and also can provide extra monsters in case you can't make the Prank Kids Mew, it's in your graveyard and you need additional extenders. It also does help that cards like Link Spider and Link Kribo are still in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. You can turn a situation where your Nibiru or your Prank Kids token into those monsters, which helps you make Predator Vert Anaconda, which goes into Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer at worst case scenario. So players came with that in mind, and they really wanted to beat the Prank Kid strategy, as most players has acknowledged it as the best deck, and unfortunately that didn't necessarily happen, as Elijah Green did get first place with a Prank Kid strategy, not playing the 60 card variant, but playing a 40 card variant. Now, going over his interview, the reason why he decided to play a 40 card variant is because he's gonna see his powerful cards like Nibiru the Primal Being, or when he sides in Super Polymerization, a really good card against the Prank Kid strategy, before a 60 card variant of a player, which is extremely smart. Me and TJ have actually been testing around with a 40 card Prank Kids deck, and I think that this is probably the way to go for a Prank Kids player, to play 40 cards so you can see into your sideboard a little bit better, or you can see those very impactful cards like Nibiru the Primal Being plus a hand trap to be able to stop your opponent. But this tournament wasn't without its twists and turns. I gotta say, when you move into top 16, there are 2 Fluunderies, 1 Despia, 6 Prank Kids as expected. This deck was on fire and is still considered the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! 3 Outlich, with 2 of them being pure, 1 of them being an Outlich Cyberse version, 2 copies of Swordsoul, and 1 Adventure Synchro. I have to give it to players' innovation like Andre Torres, going ahead and using a Despia deck before the structure deck is even live, this deck is actually ridiculously cracked. Not only does he play super polymerization inside of the main board with a Prank Kids monster, respecting the Prank Kids strategy a little bit as a whole, he also is playing some cards that immediately pop in certain matchups. Take for example, There Can Be Only One isn't necessarily good against Prank Kids, but it is amazing against a deck like Flu Underease, almost a blowout Yu-Gi-Oh card. Keep in mind, super polymerization in the main board for Despia is amazing because the only thing that needs to be on the field is a light or a dark monster, and any of your Despia monsters become any of your Despia fusion monsters using your opponent. Masquerade the Blazing Dragon is a completely cracked Yu-Gi-Oh card inside of this format. In this format where players want to activate their adventure token engine, which requires them to activate a lot of cards before they start activating their regular engine, to Masquerade the Blazing Dragons is 1,200 life points per card activation, and you still have to figure out a way to get around this card. There's also the ability to be able to fusion summon Guardian Chimera with polymerization in your graveyard, meaning that your opponent won't be able to use Infinite Impermanence or Effect Veiler on Guardian Chimera, as it is a card that can't be targeted. On top of that, this is a deck that can hard fusion summon into Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. All it has to do is draw the materials, because Despia Theater allows you to fusion summon into a level 8 or higher fusion monster, and this just so happens to be a level 8 or higher fusion monster. So congratulations to Mr. Torres for topping with Despia pre-Albaz Strike. This is actually a really powerful deck inside of this meta currently, and only gets stronger when Albaz Strike does come around. And if I can give a shout out to another innovative player, it has to go to Sean Washington, smartly choosing Swordsoul, because players are starting to drop Artifact Scythe out of their decks. Players are starting to realize that A, if you can pull off the Artifact Scythe combo, more often than not you are going to win anyways, and B, players are playing enough hand traps and going second cards to stop that from happening. And since there aren't a lot of players playing the Scythe lock, well, Swordsoul can actually come out and play some really good Yu-Gi-Oh games. Sean Washington piloting a lot of hand traps inside of his deck, a 48 card deck. There are 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Veiler, 3 Ogre, 3 Nibiru inside of this deck, 3 Infinite Impermanence, but what really carries this deck is its ability to be able to play through hand traps, as the Tingy engine can provide a tuner and or a non-tuner if you just have the token in case your monster does get Ghost Ogred, giving you into the Kristan Hockley Fibers play to continue you on. But one of the big things about this Swordsoul deck is the inclusion of Rivalry of the Warlords. This card is actually cracked against the Adventure token engine. After your opponent uses Rite of Aramacir, you can activate Rivalry of the Warlords, and now your opponent can't summon any other monsters except for Fairy, because the token on their side of the field is Fairy. This could essentially force them to end their turn, giving you another shot at just being able to OTK them or establish a board that they just can't break. There's also another awesome tech that Sean Washington is playing, and that is Mistaken Arrest. This card is Mistake on Wills, extremely hard to get around. It says until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them. This is incredibly good against Flu Underease. As you know, this is a strategy that loves to be able to search not only on your turn, but also on your opponent's turn, and it can play around cards like Psyframe Gear Gamma. Because it is a spell card, your opponent won't be able to stop that effect. This is just another amazing innovation, and congratulations Sean Washington for topping with Swordsoul, proving me wrong and still showing that Swordsoul can be an ultra competitive deck, especially when the Artifact Scythe does start to dwindle away from competitive relevancy. Now allow me to go back to the top 32, because there are some amazing strategies that I want to share with you. Mainly this Sky Striker strategy piloted by Carl, getting him into top 16? No, it looks like it's going to be top 32, but regardless, a top nonetheless. This is a 53 card Sky Striker deck with 0 hand traps in the main. Cards like Mystic Mind, which is a really good card in today's format if your opponent, or more often, your opponent will use the Draco back, the Rideable Dragon, send it to the graveyard or get rid of it for an effect like Magician Souls. Well, that's their out to Mystic Mind, which means you can drag on games, and at worst case scenario, you can make that Sky Striker Ace Hayate and attack your opponent directly until they don't have any life points left. There's also another cool tech in Offerings for the Doom. There isn't a lot of quick play spell cards that allow you to destroy cards on the field. Offerings to the Doom does force you to skip your draw phase, but allows you to destroy monsters on your turn or on your opponent's turn. And this can actually be mitigated by using Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, or gaining the effect of Destiny Hero Celestial to be able to draw cards, so it really won't matter. I gotta say, this is legitimately a Sky Striker deck, all spell cards, using great going second spell cards like Forbidden Chalice and Forbidden Droplets for going first and going second, Offerings to the Doom, Mystic Mine, and Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. This is actually a cracked version of Sky Strikers. But one thing I genuinely have to give mad props to is a player topping with Shaddoll, almost a pure Shaddoll version. Super Polymerization in the main is going to be a theme, and another card that I want to talk about is of course Psyframe Gear Gamma. Not only has this card been played in a lot of players' main boards, it's also being played in the sideboard. It allows him to use cards like Shaddoll Fusion without the risk of getting Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and can punish the opponent by stopping some of their best monster effects before they can get going. One thing I do have to say is that Shaddoll Winda is amazing against the Prank Kid strategy. If you have this card face up, then he can only special summon once, which could be really problematic if they've already used Draco back to get rid of the Winda. But now that I've backtracked to some other amazing topping decks, we can move on to top 4, which happens to be 1 Prank Kids, 2 Eldritch, and 1 Floowandereeze. As you're starting to see a theme here, there actually is a really interesting theme about top 4. 3 of the 4 decks do not need their extra deck, so Artifact Scythe would have really been punished inside of the top 4 if the other player decided to play it inside of their deck, which I thought would be really cool. Decks that don't need their extra deck are starting to become really popular, as not only can you play a lot of great floodgates to be able to stop some of the top meta strategies, you're also punishing your opponent for using cards that would stop you from doing something that you don't do. Jumping into Ryan Fletcher's Floowandereeze list, this is actually extremely standard, but one thing I want to point out is that Mans really did play Psyframe Gear Gamma in the side. This is a deck that doesn't necessarily, can't really pop off if it does special summon, but Gamma being so important in this format, and especially seeing that a lot of players would not expect Psyframe Gear Gamma in a Floowandereeze deck, Ryan 100% took advantage. Also have to give a mad salute to Harpy's Featherstorm in the main board, being able to completely turn off your opponent's entire turn when this card is flipped face up might be just the direction that Floowandereeze wants to go. It is an amazing Yu-Gi-Oh card. Other than that, it's fairly standard. I do like that Trap Trick could be able to search the Harpy's Featherstorm in case he really needs that card as fast as possible, and Mystic Mind punishing players for getting rid of that Draco back, or in the particular situation, just outright punishing an opponent after they've used all their disruptions to buy you enough time to get back into the game. And as you know, that leads us into our top 2 with Elijah Green versus Jerome Adams. We've already seen Elijah Green's list. I bet you're wondering what exactly does Jerome Adams' list is. Now, unfortunately, I don't have Jerome's exact list, but I do have his Kissimmee Regionals list, which looks really strongly close to what he played. As you can go ahead and jump, you can see that there are tons and tons of floodgates in here. There's Skill Drain, there's There Can Be Only One, there's Goes and Match, there's Anti-Spell Fragrance for when you're going first, you can stop that Adventurer Engine. This is a madman's deck. As you can see, it is built to win, and it's built to win hard in the battle of attrition, which is why Jerome probably played the entire game 1, because he probably felt that he could have a way to come back into the game easily. And to be honest with you, I can't really blame him. Looking at his deck, I probably would play it to the very bitter end. This deck has a lot of just cards that really say your opponent cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh! A well-flipped Skill Drain, a Goes and Match, or a Solemn Strike can literally turn the tides right back into your favor. So ultimately, my final thoughts for YCS Charlotte and a complete meta-analysis on what's going on. Psyframe Gear Gamma is a huge Yu-Gi-Oh card. Not only does it stop your opponent's important interactions of play, it allows you to keep playing if you're playing spell cards that your opponent will want to stop while you have no monsters on the field. Floodgates like Rivalry of the Warlords and Goes and Match are also very huge, especially after your opponent activates Rite of Aramacir to get a token. If they don't have the Draco back, then they're going to be in for a long ride, as they won't be able to summon any additional monsters, as there aren't a lot of other fairy decks. Artifact Scythe was almost non-existent in the top 32. There was, I believe, maybe one particular strategy that was playing it, and that was Eldritch Cyberse, But other than that, players pretty much skirted around the card, did not care, played enough hand traps to punish you, or did not play an extra deck that they needed, and you were severely punished. The lack of Artifact Scythe has allowed Swordsoul to come back inside of this game, not necessarily needing the Adventure Token Engine or Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. This deck has proven to be a threat when Artifact Scythe has been put in check. Nibiru is also a godsend Yu-Gi-Oh card, especially when you can pair it with another hand trap. It can essentially end some of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh like Prank Kid's Turn, as long as you can play around the Wandering Griffin Rider. And lastly, of course, Super Polymerization has shown its head as one of the top cards inside of the format, being able to fuse off your opponent's board. Really good against Prank Kids, and also will be good against the Despia strategy that is to come. Well, that is all that I have for a meta analysis for YCS Charlotte. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and check out these videos, but if you want to see Master Duel content, Master Duel Cali is here. I'll also be streaming Master Duel 4 p.m. today, Pacific Standard Time on Twitch, so I hope to see you there. But until then, I'll catch you on the next video.